Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from Milan, and good morning and good evening to all of you who are joining us globally. Thank you so much for those of you who are joining us online. Welcome to you all today. I'm very excited to be and delighted to be moderating this event today. My name is Mama Boating. I am from Sustainable Energy for All, and I am also moderating today on behalf of the Youth Task Force and with my colleague Irina, who's also from Race for Africa. Today's event is focused on a very important topic, Today, we're focusing on the timely topic of youth empowerment for driving Africa's energy transition. As the continent with the youngest and growing youth population, Africa's youth represent not only the future, but the present. We are the backbone of the sustainable future for Africa, an Africa where all have access to sustainable and affordable and reliable energy for all. A new reality for Africa, where importantly, an Africa for young Africa by young Africa. Today's opening event, I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Salvador Bonet, President of Race for Africa, whom without today this event would not be possible. Mr. Bernabe is joining us online. I don't know, colleagues, if you can put him up on the screen for us. Right, there he is, great. Thank you, Mr. Bernabe. Please take it over for our opening remarks.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And I have to say that I'm not happy. I'm extremely happy to share this moment today with you at this youth empowerment for driving Africa energy development, not transition. I want to refer to what we have to do in Africa as energy development, not transition. And I'm extremely happy because together with representatives of the industries, of the academies, there are lots of representatives of the young generation. This is something that we have been advocating a lot. We have been working in the latest 12 months to make it happen together with Rest for Africa, with Roberto Vigotti and all the team. And finally, we were able also to give some substance to this commitment. And we all know that at the end of last year, when we had the pre-COP in Milan, there was this increasing sense of awareness about the importance of involving a young generation for the definition of the actions of the action plan for having a brighter future for all of us. And the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition event that was held in Milan was a concrete fact where more than 400 young delegates gathered in Milan, and I finally elaborated this manifesto that was this collection of recommendations or requests directly from the young generation. So I think that all of us now understood how important is to define the future together with the young generation. And I want to tell that also at Race for Africa, more or less 1 year ago with Roberto, we were reckoning about our future, our roadmap, and we were saying, look, what is the aim, the objective of our foundation? Is to define a better future for Africa by bringing Africa sustainable energy. But in doing that, we cannot act alone. We cannot just act as industry, advocating also with the governments, with the institutions. We have to involve the young generation. So let's find a way to make it happen. And finally, what we did is that we changed our governance, because we introduced a new body called the Advisory Board, where we invited the two representatives of the young generations. And the first meeting of the Advisory Board was held like 2 months ago here in Rome, and I had the pleasure to meet for the first time the Advisory Board that was designing from the beginning with the presence of two young delegates. But we said, look, we have to go forward. This is not sufficient. So let's work on organizing a youth task force that would help our organization to bring ideas, recommendation, and then to act. Because at the end, our foundation is a tool, and we want we to be used by the young generation to establish this new generation of the future in Africa. And when I refer to the generation of the future, I refer to both the young generation, but also new kind of electrical generation that is more sustainable. I refer to renewables, coupled with grids, with green hydrogen, with storage, this new technology that will make accessible and affordable the electricity for the continent of Africa. But we said we have to do more than that. So we will also launch in the next future a youth fund. That is a fund that will be helpful to support through grants, but also through mentoring, startups, innovative firms, young entrepreneurs. So if I sum up all of these initiatives, at the end, I think that are very in tune with what has been requested by the manifesto. For instance, in the manifesto, I remember one of the key requests was the inclusion of the topic of climate change in the academic curriculum. Or another request was the importance of reskilling in the areas affected by the energy transition. But there was a request, a need for creating a transparent and accountable climate finance system. And that's why we are also reconfiguring our job in terms of reskilling, training. You know very well that at Rest for Africa, we have launched several years ago these two initiatives, advanced training course from one end, and then the microgrid academy. So we will reorganize all of these activities that so far have helped more than 500 young people to be trained, to have a concrete support to realize their ideas. And we will reorganize this activity so that we will have these educational vocational courses to start very soon. So at the end, I think that we had this insight 1 year ago, more or less. We were quite fast in going from the ideas to the real fact. And now it's time also to receive your support, dear young generation. So we would like to remember, I would like to remember that you are both drivers and enablers for this brighter future for Africa. So we are here as Rest for Africa Foundation, speaking with the voice of its president, telling you that we would like to start very fast in collaborating more actively with you. We have defined some tools that perhaps could be improved, but now that we have set up the basis of this new different way to collaborate and to go on, it's time to start. So eager to start working with the real project with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Salvador. Thank you to Mr. Salvatore for those great remarks. I think it's really great to hear all the work that Res for Africa is doing with youth. I think it's great that you're not just including youth in events like this, but as he said, you're empowering youth first through your capacity building programs and educating them through your capacity building programs, but also including them meaningfully in your governance programs, and that's through the advisory board. So it's really great to see that youth are being empowered, educated, and included. And now we have opening remarks also from Mr. Fabrizio Archibe, who's from PwC, a partner at PwC, and who we have to thank, obviously, for having this beautiful event in this beautiful building. So thank you. Over to you, Mr. Archibe.
I think opening remark is too much. I'm simply saying welcome to you here. Is very pleased to host you in this building. This is quite an iconic building in Milano now, because the nickname, whose nickname is the Curved, Curvo, and has been designed by an architect with Daniel Liebeskind. It's important for PwC Rest for Africa. Why? For a number of reasons. First, we are among the 6 partners who are working together with the other since the beginning, and there is a particular characteristic of Rest for Africa and Africa, which is very close to PwC. Our average age is 32. Which is incredible if you think that we are 7,000 people here in Italy. And if I take Africa, which 75% is below 35 years old, we are 2 young communities. you are a bit larger than us, but we are similar in this. And I'm very pleased to see many young people working on an important goal of securing energy for all and bringing a clean energy transition or development, as Mr. Bernabei said. We at PwC are proud to partner the foundation, but also to see important initiative like the Youth Task Force. We think is very crucial because you are the future, and as a young leader, you have a huge responsibility. If something will change, will be mainly on you. I mean, our generation, the older generation, which I'm afraid I belong to, is to act to give you the chance to speak louder in all the context of organizations, foundations, companies, which is something that is not happening easily and commonly. So it's something that is in our responsibility to give you a choice. In this light, I think the event of today is a unique opportunity. We are here to discuss how to foster African local ownership, build jobs in the renewable market, and foster commitment of local governments to choosing sustainable policies. Let me wish to all of us to meet somewhere, perhaps here in Milan again, in few years, and remembering today, saying that something of good has been done, and we are proud of some remarkable achievements. We are also here to exchange ideas and build networks. So please don't be shy. I think the cocktail will help in this respect when we will meet after our working session. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Rest for Africa. We are proud to host you here in our home, and I think we can open officially our working session. Leaving the floor, I guess, is somewhere to Roberto Bigotti, who is the Secretary General of Rest for Africa. Welcome again.
Thank you so much, Fabrizio. As you can see, I am unfortunately in Rome because during the weekend I got a sunstroke, which typically, I remember when I was a Boy Scout, every summer at the camp I had a sunstroke. This time was the fault of my grandchild. So I was with him 2 hours on the beach, and because I have some temperature and also some headache, I thought it was for respecting you, I would not come to Milano and waiting for tomorrow morning the result of the COVID test. I don't think I have it, but still, I mean, respecting and the prudence calls me to stay in Roma. So let's see. The presentation will be not most of the things I'm going to show you, you know already, but I think it's important for you to also forward this presentation to your boss, to your colleagues, to highlight the full purpose of our meeting here. Again, I'm very sorry not to be in Milano. First of all, because I would like to be with you, but also because the invitation by Fabrizio Acerbis to come to this unique landscape monument now in Milano was very tempting for me. Coming soon. Next slide. Quickly, who we are. Of course, we have been working since 10 years. By the way, we celebrated the 10th anniversary a few days ago, and you can see this booklet you can download from our website, which is called Sustainable Electricity for a Prosperous Africa, or even in the back says 10 years full of a future. Download it because this collects the rationale of our action now. Our mission, we work to create the condition for scaling up investment in clean technology and transform the energy in Africa, in the sense that we want to make sure that every country will do its own transition or its transformation or its sustainable development, as Salvatore says. We want to be sure we can support the clean electricity movement, because we believe a lot of advantage. Next slide also show you quickly the logo of our member. You see we are very international partner. The two you see on top, the corresponding logo, the two faces you see, Enel Green Power, Salvatore, and Schneider Electric, Amel there. But we see we also have a Siemens Gamesa, of course we have PwC, Vestas, we have also Nedbank, which is the first African member, and then we have Prismian, of course, where you were this morning. I was very happy to know that Prismian offered to all of you a technical visit in his research lab to show you how strong the consideration is from the industry, also commercial industry, with the young people in Africa. So we are a very, very truly a European institution network working with African people. Next slide. We could not do this, of course, alone. You see, this is just the main logos of the partner we have, and you just can take a look at them. There are many partners from the international arena, IEA and European Investment Bank. Also, we have agency like GIZ, who is financing us now, but also we have academia and so on. So we are really consider that partnership with us, it's the most valuable tool to make things happen. And for each one of them, I'm sure we will be able to propose you consideration for working together. Now, next slide says, what does it take to do a clean transformation? Yes. What happened in the last 10 years? In the last 10 years, you cannot believe, but in the last 10 years, while in the world there was a huge and massive deployment of renewable, in fact, renewable are now considered #1 and the most prominent resource for electricity. Only 2% of renewable happening in Africa. And this is really incredible, because you see on the right, you see the reason why we think that Africa needs more energy and therefore more renewable. On the left, some of the issue that did not allow this one. And next slide, in details, what are the factors which we believe are to be addressed, and all of them we at Rest for Africa, in particular our partners, try to attack. And this booklet, Connecting the Dots, you can download easily from a website. It tells you the story, it tells you some of the recommendation. It's been done with the Rest for Africa Foundation, of course, and Enel Green Power Unit of Strategy. I thank you so much. Next slide shows also something that's important. Those are the recommendations. We think that there was a lack of commitment to action, from committed to action. There's a lot of targets, a lot of declaration, but not much action, actually not the way we wish. The deficit of the power sector, you know that many of the utilities in Africa are monopolistic, and 90% of them are bankrupt for political decision because they cannot collect cost-effective tariffs. There is also the issue of a productive use of energy, which is also very important to encourage. And as I said before, the perceived high-risk environment. We do believe that many companies and many resources, the money is available. It's a huge amount of money, but they don't come to Africa because the perception of the environment is still risky. So next slide tells you what are some of those solutions. I just, the recommendation, I just emphasize the one in red, which is for you, to put the youth empowerment and capacity building on top of the agenda, of course. And this is what we are trying to do, and what I will, of course. Now, the other one are other activities that we are absolutely doing in our program of work. Next slide also shows you now the details of why we are working with you and why we want to work more and more, and through you make things happen. Next slide also shows you the initial idea. So why youth? Well, because I think first of all, you see the average age on the right. The average age of African countries is 17 years, 22 years, you know. So Fabrizio, you think you're older, but think about me, I'm 75, so I will be out of the scope here in the low part of the curve, because I mean, this is the richness and the challenge for Africa. So this is incredible, the age, and more to come with the hundreds of millions coming soon. And of course, also because Africa, Rest for Africa, gives the opportunity for dialogue. And I'm sure, again, I repeat what Salvatore said, we will give you a fast track possibility to work through our action. So you will always be, for instance, we do training capacity building. Any one of you, of our beloved task member, will be able, if they want to join, be an extra student there, because I think the more you can grasp from, you see, our website, www.res4africa, is peculiar because you can download everything from there with no registration and no password, which is something, being myself a former researcher, I say, no, everything should be protected. I was told by my presidents that innovation is not to be protected, innovation is to be spread. The more people come to your website and rub and suck your website, the better it's for everybody, so I accept that one. I forgot about patent and things like that. Next slide gives you the 4 major items we are going with you. We want to educate, engage, consult, and support. Now, educate was mentioned before, and mentoring is capacity building and mentoring. We really want to make sure that you get the best information from all the success story and even failures we learn from the world. We are not going to give you the lesson from Europe. We're going to give you the lesson from Brazil, from Thailand, from Asia, from everywhere, to show you that something which happens somewhere can be helpful for you. I mean, now renewables are global. There's nothing to invent, just to apply and make things happen. Engage, yes, we want to engage you in advocacy and youth talks, a youth survey. Later we will list the PwC presentation of a short survey they did with you for your opinion. But I think advocacy and awareness are so important that we count on you to forward the common language to decision makers in your country and your organization. In consulting, it was mentioned already by Salvatore, we created 2 jobs, 2 special places in our International Advisory Board, and we really appreciate your comments. And the task force yourself are the engine, the motor for doing things more. And finally, the institution of the Res for Africa Youth Fund, which is something new this year that will be deployed and later be presented, and the MGA, the Microgrid Academy Young Talent of the Year Award, which now we are the 3rd year to be applied. And I know some of you in the room are recipients of this award. Next slide. You see here quickly how many countries in red on the right we cover with the advanced training course. The course is for, let's say, middle manager in ministry, agency, utility, banking. So it's mostly on planning, managerial, and financial and economic issue. And we usually have this in Milano. Next year, we are going, this year, actually, November, we really hope to be in Milano with the 2 beloved university in Bocconi for finance economics and Polytechnico in Milano for technical, and we hope to have 40, 50 of you, all of you there. In any case, we will keep on the online edition, which in this year saw 260, even more people every Wednesday for 4 months to listen and discuss our lesson. Thank you so much. That's it. Next one is also the other side of the academy, which we used to be known as Microgrid Academy, but now it's the academy. Again, you see in blue all the country we covered. We target young and middle-level individuals and professionals. So far, 1,530 people participated in from more than 40 countries, and this training, it's important because we could assess how important it was in the career and also in the relation the people have. So we are going to enhance this edition because we think that basic knowledge of renewable technology is important. So again, you can take a part if you want to some of those just by asking us. Next one. The Young Talent of the Year, it's here. This was the first edition, 2020. We chose the best proposal coming spontaneously from people. I think Nora is there, I think, and Nora was among the first winners, and I know she could start a startup and now becoming a little star. I saw that also BBC gave you a prize. I'm really proud. All of the 3 of them presented innovative, let's say, idea we were able to prize them with the 5,000 euro each one. And this is just a seed money, but it really started to kick off your activity. Last year, we had the next slide, in 2021, other three winners again, with see the very innovative and very intelligent solution out of a 70-75 presentation. I'm finalist, and we want to start now again this year. We are launching this one now. The new thing you see in the bottom, the European Investment Bank is sponsoring also this event, and actually it will be Energy and Power organizing, but European Bank giving the prize. So we hope to enlarge more and more, to have more possibility to give a reward to many, many more of you. So that's a very practical thing that looks to me very promising. Next one. Well, the youth fund was mentioned by Salvatore. Let's see the next slide. We want to propose to implement and to increase the number of partnership initiatives. We want to make more. So we in education, in partnership, in empowerment. So now we have, and honestly, we have a limited capacity to support the youth and startup. So by having this youth fund in place, we hope to collect interest, money, and resource, and I would say awarding more and more young Africans to allow them to express their ideas and to really create startups who really can convince also on the ground that things are feasible, even very different from the condition we, at least in Europe, are aware of. Next slide gives you a little bit of the time frame. We want to, from the network of the member, from the internal resources, from other sources of funding, we want to make the fund available for startup, pilot project, innovative business model, and scaling up of creative idea. So we hope in the next few months we collect. Maybe you can also indicate to some of your partner or funding institution to contribute with along those 4 lines to this fund. Next slide, and I think I'm almost closing, don't worry. Next slide shows you the time. We are in phase 1, the feasibility study, but soon in this year we hope to get a positive outcome, and therefore to have a fund structuring and finally a startup of the funding to make the, say, kind of domino or avalanche effect to increase the number of innovative ideas, innovative thinking to be deployed. Next one again. I think we are really getting close to the conclusion. Well, this is the timeline we are working, thanks to Maria Caterina, to Marta, and to Luca, and we are doing phase 1 will be decided in the middle of the year to say to go or not go, but we hope to go, and therefore we will comply in the second phase, third phase to make sure. So to close with the last slide, I think is just again, the final slide is next one, is a picture of the young people we were at the privilege to meet, and some of the photos are you see in Milano. You see the Cathedral of Milano, the square, the Chesi Laboratory, but also some of them were done in the field in Africa, working in the field in many, many cities. So with this picture, I really want to thank you for being with us. I'm really so sorry not to be with you, but you know, this is not enough. I was thinking that it was for your respecting to you until I know I don't have a COVID, even a mild one. I don't think so by now, just to respect you not to come, but I'm missing the opportunity. But as Fabrizio says, we hope to have several of these meetings in Milano to celebrate our progress. Please count on us. And also, again, you consider yourself, thanks to Maria Caterina, Ola, who is there, and also Marta, you have a fast track to access to our initiative. And we really believe and we really count on your support to make this happen. Thank you so much. I'll stay online for the rest of the conversation. I give the floor back to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vigotti. We're also sorry that you can't be here with us today in person, but I think even online you made it very clear that Rest for Africa is committed to involving the youth in all of its activities. As we move to the high-level panel, I'd just like to remind you of something that actually Mr. Vigotti said to me in the office not that long ago. He reminded me that we are never too old to learn and never too young to lead. keep that in mind as we go forward with the panel. And to our speakers, please also keep in mind that we have an ambitious agenda with a lot of key messages and not a lot of time. So please be mindful of the time. I'll let Mame introduce our first panelist. Thank you.
Thank you. You think after 2 years of COVID, I'd be able to figure out how to get a mask off? Probably not still. But thank you so much. Thank you. We will move on to now our panel. And the first person I'd like to call for our panel, this is quite exciting, is Sabrina Di Nicola, which is the head of climate from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy. It's really great to have you on our panel this morning, Ms. Di Nicola. I think it's really great the work that Italy is doing with youth. I think these past 2 years, I think out of all the governments, Italy has really been a forerunner on actually involving youth in climate. Just an hour ago, we had this great conversation with one of your colleagues from another ministry talking about the Youth for Climate initiative that Italy will be continuing on this year. So we're really excited to hear more about what you have in store for us. So thank you, and over to you.
Thank you. Okay, now it is. Thanks. Good afternoon. Thank you to Rest for Africa and PwC for organizing this event and hosting us here, because with everything that's going on in these days, it is very important that we keep focusing on what was considered before the war and the pandemic, the defining challenge of our times. So maybe now it's even more urgent that we keep on addressing climate change and the energy transition. Today we will focus on African climate change through the lens of youth engagement, because these are a priority for Italy's foreign policy. Let's start with the African continent. Due to its strategic importance, geographical proximity, and the great opportunity for economic, social, and cultural partnership, Africa has been an historical priority for our foreign policy. Italy is right at the center of the Mediterranean, and our traditional inclination for dialogue makes us look to Europe, the Mediterranean, and Africa as a single vertical macrocontinent. Italy's approach to Africa, it's all-encompassing, and we have also, at least the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as some guidelines that Minister Di Maio presented in December 2020, and it's a document called the Partnership with Africa, and you can see it on our website, and it's being updated in the light of all the recent events. We also convened last year the Encounters with Africa event, which was the third Italy-Africa conference of this kind. And while we intend to broaden the partnership with Africa to include all sectors of cooperation, there was a specific focus on climate change, blue economy, energy transition, and renewables, because we think they are drivers for sustainable development. There is an increase in climate disaster, loss of biodiversity, more desertification and drought. So environmental issues must find even more space in the international dialogue. We need to address these issues in a coordinated and efficient manner, because they are very interconnected, and because they have or can have deep repercussions in terms of security for all countries. The consequences of the Russian war on Ukraine are particularly severe in the energy sector. So we are trying to rebalance our energy mixes, and we are working on diversifying our energy sources, looking for alternative supplies through the strengthening of collaborations with reliable partners that have great potentials, like the African countries. But at the same time, Italy is working to accelerate a just and clean energy transition in those countries, also in line with the United Nations 2030 agenda. Because energy transition is not only a tool to curb GHG emissions and reach our collective climate goals, but it's also a key factor of new jobs, GDP growth, and energy autonomy. One way of fostering capacity building is training young people, talented students, young professionals, and managers alike. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is thus financing or co-financing quite a few projects dedicated to the training of young professionals. One of the most important is, as we saw, Rest for Africa Advanced Training Course. But also we always with Rest for Africa contributed to the NL Foundation program Open Africa Power. And we are also financing IRENA educational program for youth climate leaders, a series of short modules focused on energy transition and the fight against climate change, which will be offered starting from this year to students and young professionals all over the world, in particular developing countries, with the collaboration of our embassies. These are just few examples of our successful collaboration with Rest for Africa and other organizations aimed at training young people in the field of renewables and energy transition to the benefit of Africa continent, and with a special focus on women empowerment. We firmly believe in involving young people in international negotiations. On one end, the specific sensibility and forward-looking approach, the capacities, idealism, enthusiasm, and energy make them a vital driver for change and long-term sustainable solutions. On the other end, it is their future we are deciding, and they surely have the right to participate in the decision-making process. As I'm sure you all recall, last year, Italy chaired the G20 and was also partner of the United Kingdom for COP26. As Mr. Bigotti mentioned, back to the pre-COP that we hosted here in Milano, Italy chose to organize an event with, for, and managed by young people. Throughout the year, the Ministry of Ecological Transition organized webinars chaired by young activists on different themes, from adaptation to local action, from innovation to ambition, and so on. In each webinar, a special guest was invited to talk about her or his experience. Former Minister of Environment Costa, UN Vice Secretary General Amina Mohammad, Christiana Figueres, Achim Steiner, just to mention a few, interacted with or sent videos, messages to the young participant. The webinars contributed to build momentum, interests, and skills on the path to the Youth for Climate event, where about 400 young people, about 2 from almost every country, part of the UN Convention on Climate Change, met to discuss and adopt a collective document, the manifesto Mr. Bigotti was talking about, that was then presented to the 50 ministers participating in the pre-COP. Our embassies contributed by organizing events to promote the webinars, to reach as many young people as we could. It has been a coordinated effort that paid off. In fact, such was the interest aroused by the Youth for Climate that it has now become an annual event to take place in collaboration with the United Nations on the margins of big international events. This year, it will be held in September during the high-level week of the 77th session of the UNGA, the General Assembly of the UN. I'll finish with just a few words on COP27. This year, it will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we call it an African COP because it will be in Egypt. It will be mainly dedicated to the implementation of the commitments that the international community has undertaken, starting from the Paris Agreement to the most recent Glasgow Pact. Key issues will be adaptation, loss and damage, and climate finance. Adaptation is quite important for Africa and for other developing countries. African nations, in fact, are responsible for just 3% of global emission, but the continent is going to be hit the hardest by the devastating impacts of climate change. On finance, Italy repeatedly stressed the need for a deeper involvement of the international financial institutions, because the huge financial flows necessary for the ecological transition must be effectively channeled, and we must pay close attention to avoid destabilizing social repercussions. Besides that, a greater involvement of the multilateral development banks would also help attract greater private sector capital. In view of COP27, we are committed to preserving our legacy, making the most of the fleeting window of opportunity that we still have in order to build on our progress without returning to anachronistic and destructive patterns. And let me close by saying that from this point of view, the war is the most incoherent and anachronistic thing that we can exist. And it's a disarming sight for the girls and the boys who are peacefully fighting to save the planet, and whose vision and values we are committed to bring forward together with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Di Nicola. It's great to see the Italian government leading by example in involving the youth and making their voice heard. And I'm also very glad that you mentioned capacity building and training, because education is one of the most important ways of empowering young people. And it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the director of the Master in Sustainability and Energy Management at Pocono University, Mr. Digastel Nuovo. Mr. Digastel and his team have assisted many students, myself included, in not just acquiring the necessary knowledge, but also in finding and securing the right jobs to start contributing to energy transition efforts. So please tell us more.
Thank you, Rina. Many thanks also to Oh, green, sorry. Repeat that. Many thanks for the kind invitation from Restaurant Africa and PwC. I'm very happy to be here. And there was a sentence at the beginning about betting on youth. And if you are in my line of business, that's what you do. No, you bet on youth. Otherwise, you should think of a different job to do. And so maybe I thought, hoping that it will be useful to the debate, and by all means, I will be happy to answer questions maybe later on. I wanted to give you my perspective from the university I work with in terms of what is happening in terms of education, the possibility and the kind of role that education play with regards to the, Irina mentioned, the energy transition. And in this respect, I'm really thankful for the cooperation that I had to do over the years with Roberto and Rest for Africa, but allowed us also to develop and tackle issues related to Africa and renewable technologies, which we would not have been able to do otherwise. So education in general, as a sort of tends to be slower than the events that we see outside. That's by default, because it has a lengthy process, okay? So whatever goes into the syllabi, okay, has to be validated, has to be checked, because imagine that you find about a new technology, a new business model, and you think it should be taught in the classroom, but it has to be vouched, it has to be clear, it has to be make sure that it's something which will be valid also 12 months afterwards, no? So that's a bit of a problem. That combined with the fact that universities in general have the sort of, as any organization, they are complex as any organization is, and so it has to be checked, approved by the council. Imagine that for the master that Irina mentioned, I have to sign and give the program with the details and the professor and everything in January for the program, which will kick off the next January, 12 months in advance. But I don't know what is going to happen in the next 12 months, but I need to clear and sign a program for basically after 12 months. So that's the way it is. So you should distinguish between kind of education happens at university with the kind of education happens at business school. The first one obviously is targeting the youth, younger generation. So whether it's a bachelor degree or it's a master degree. And this kind of program, indeed, it is fair to say that it has been rather slow. and adapting. If I think also at my university, we have a very limited amount of products that we can offer to the younger generation. We are a business school, so we don't deal with technology directly, we deal with social science. And I have to say that actually, if I look at how the world has changed, we have been struggling in terms of adapting the programs to the demand. So we have lots of demand from young students who want to study these kind of things, but obviously the university has its own time to adapt. One way you can bridge this gap is by working with organizations like Enel or Rest for Africa. You do the field projects, and this allows you to sort of accelerate the change and allow you to be in touch with what's actually happened in the real world. But that's the kind of education. So education is in a path, you cannot change it that rapidly. If you think about this is a bit of a big issue, because if you think about the IPCC says that we need to slash emissions by reach the peak of emission 25, so 2.5 years from now, and slash the emission by half, which means mostly through renewables by 2030. You can see that we have a big problem in terms of adapting. The second challenge the university often faces is the fact that energy transition, sustainability in general, and climate change is by definition a multidisciplinary challenge. Okay, so you need everything, and you need economics, you need technology, you need mathematics, you need ecology. A university in general, there's still structure among departments, and so this can be difficult for us to come up with the right product, whereas actually society needs at any particular time. Research is actually the most dynamic one. So research has to be by definition a frontier. So if I think about hydrogen, okay, so let's look into hydrogen. Nuclear fusion, let's look into nuclear fusion by all means. But it has to be the frontier. But then there is a gap between the time that your research is ready and validating, the time you can bring it to classroom and share this with you guys, okay, and say, okay, this is actually ready, it's good for you, you should know that actually these technologies, this business model works, and we're gonna use that. And you need to keep adapting. I'm thinking that, for instance, in recent months, we've been increasingly asked to know more about gas. And natural gas seems to be something which is relevant, but also very much like a bridge fuel, no? And these days, there's a growing demand from students, also from companies, to get to know more about the economics of gas markets. And that is because of what happened, unfortunately, what you mentioned, since the 24th of February. And above. So that's the education university. But then there's another type of education, which is the one that usually takes place at the business school. And business school, by definition, tend to be more dynamic. So they're better equipped in terms of meeting the demands in time, meeting the demands on company. And that's actually where you can maybe, depending on kind of your seniority, you may find the opportunity to sort of bridge some gap or find the opportunity to retrain yourself, often in cooperation with companies. So my suggestion to you is definitely, if you go into the corporate world, when you're evaluating your option, always make sure that the company you decided to work with, the institution, is an organization which is keen on your future development. And that has to be through education. It could be through some kind of corporate university. It doesn't have to be through a business school. But education, as Irina mentioned, you're never too old to learn. This is absolutely right, especially in the world we live today, which is changing so rapidly, and we are facing challenges which seemed unthinkable 2 years ago, okay, whether it's the pandemic and the climate change, and now we know there is a connection between climate change and health. So very much pay attention to what your future employer is going to offer you in terms of education. Now, the last aspect I wanted to cover is the other side, which is what I see from my perspective, what companies do when they come to us. First thing first, the interesting thing is that actually any kind of skills is very much required. The fact we're talking about renewable energies doesn't mean that it's just a monopoly of engineering degrees, okay? Because everything is needed, okay? If you are like I do, because I sort of director of several programs at the business school training energy companies, and you can see in some cases, if for instance, if you're dealing with business developers within energy companies, what they need to do is to know a bit of everything. They need to know about law, they need to know about social skills, okay, because they need to engage with the community, stakeholder engagement. They need to know about soft skills to be a good project manager, and need to know about the economics and the finance, and need to do about it. So there's a whole realm. So the message, which is a very positive one, which is actually this energy transition is offering tremendous opportunities in terms of the kind of job you want to do, because maybe not everybody is necessarily eager to be an engineer, and that's absolutely fine. The fact that we need to build 1 trillion gigawatt of renewables doesn't mean that we only need the technical side. There's also so much going on, and in Italy we know a thing or two about the troubles of getting permitting right, okay, just to make one example. So companies are asking any kind of skills basically, okay, so not just the business model, not just economics. Indeed, I would say that this is very much a sample of my master, the master I'm responsible for. I would say that consultancies right now are the organization which are recruiting the most. And the reason be that actually companies are in trouble, okay? Companies, they need to green their act, and not necessarily just energy companies. I'm talking about company, any kind of business segment sector. They're looking into sustainability and decarbonization at the net zero target. And to be honest with you, I trained them and they don't understand much for the most part, or they're very skeptical about it because it's 2050, it's not going to touch me. But actually, no, increasingly they will face this problem, and they're going to need people like yourself who actually know what they're doing, actually know about renewables and the energy transition and the climate challenge. This is actually happening right now. The people who are actually more dynamic in that respect, in my view, except from some companies at the frontier, okay, but you know which companies I'm talking about in terms of decarbonization. But this actually I see very much, it's consultancy right now that actually are very much in line with actually what the market needs, and are moving much faster in terms of recruiting. And so they're actually filling the gap to some extent of what actually other companies at the sector would be able to do it. But overall, if you ask me, my perspective, and I see how many job interviews our students are actually getting, it's a terrific time for them, to be honest. Wonderful opportunities literally all over the world. Okay, so it's very much an exciting time, I think, to be someone of your age. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for those really insightful remarks. It was really fascinating to hear you speak, and I think I really enjoyed hearing you discuss about adaptation and not just resilience and being nimble and dynamic. I think it's really interesting in today's world where things are changing so rapidly because of different geopolitical issues which are happening, especially in the energy space. And it's not just, I think a lot of people like to say that, you know, governments now, because of what's happening in Ukraine, you know, are moving away from renewables and going back, you know, into coal and things. But from an African perspective, you just look at energy access. It's now the woman who can't afford anymore her energy bill. So instead of using electricity, now what she's going to do instead of cooking with electricity, she's going back to using wood and coal to cook. And that doesn't mean just looking at fossil fuels, but that also harms herself and her children. And so that looks at the health industry also, and looks at the health ministry. And so that's also what the professor was talking about, that if we look at climate, especially in Africa, it's not just focused on the environment. It goes into so many different aspects and goes into the health, and it's really important that we look at that. And so now we're going to be going, as the professor said, I think it was a great segue into looking at now corporates who are going to be very dynamic. And so we now have Enel Green Power who are going to speak. We have Massimo Lombardi and Valeria Galmarni who are going to be speaking about training programs and mentoring to young youth. And I think, as the professor said, that yes, it's really great that in the university we get this education, but if we want to keep up with our changing world, we really need to have a focus on this changing world, and also look at different training programs. And then now Green Power does a great job in supporting young people with that. So thank you, and over to you. Would you like?
We will exchange this one. Thank you. First of all, thanks for inviting us to share with all of you a couple of strategic programs that we are running in Enel Green Power, and not only in Enel Green Power, also through an initiative called the Global Alliance for Sustainable Energy. I guess we have prepared some slide that I still cannot see on the screen. Okay, perfect. I We'll start this presentation sharing with you which is the approach that we are running at an associational level in an initiatives, like I was saying, called Global Alliance for Sustainable Energy. If we go to the next slide, I will just have a bit on how dramatic is the situation related to the climate change. So quite a couple of famous pictures. But we should not forget that climate change is not the only emergency, and we can jump on the next slide, because we all know that the situation in terms of environment is strictly connected with the social aspects of those crises. And this situation is fully inserted in 4 main trends that we can see in the next slide. So we can observe that at a global level, we have those 4 directions: urbanization, digitalization, electrification, and also decarbonization. At the end of the day, we can think that probably renewables, and we can jump to the next slide, are the solution of all the problems connected with climate change and the social aspects. But we perfectly know that at a certain point, once renewables are going to be mainstream, green won't be enough. So it means that we are going to leave a lot of pressures in terms of expectation and, let's say, right expectation in terms on how sustainable is the green energy. That's the reason why we decided as Enel Green Power to promote this initiative, and we can jump to the next slide, because Enel, you know, it's a huge company. We are present in more than 32 countries. We are probably the first private operator in renewables all over the world. But and here there are some figures that can confirm what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, the real question is the one that we are going to see in the next slide. Can we do everything alone? And to answer properly to this question is no, absolutely not. We need the collaboration, and we need the collaboration through a stable initiative called Global Alliance for Sustainable Energy. We can jump to the next slide. That was launched more or less 1 year ago and has the aim to be a platform in which the main peers of the energy sectors are all together to face 4 main priorities that we can see in the next slide. It's a kind of unique, because here you can see the main clusters of the peers that we involved during the process of the creation of the alliance. So for sure there is the industry clusters, so utilities, contractors, suppliers, and so on. But I was saying it's a kind of unique because we inserted since the beginning and fully in the decision-making process also the civil society clusters, and especially 2 student associations that we will see next. And they are fully embedded in the decision-making process in the sense that they are within the steering committee of the alliance, and they have the same rights of votes of all the other members, like of Enel or like Iberdrola or like all the other utilities present in the alliance. So a way in which we involved the youth generation in a proactive way, so that we can teach and learn from them. And that's a key for this kind of association. It's not an industry club, that's fundamental. If we go to the next slide, we can see the main values of the alliance. So environment for sure, transparency, collaboration, respect of human rights, at the end of the day, generally speaking, sustainability. And the final objective of the alliance is to better define what we mean for sustainable energy. And to do that, we should harmonize the existing KPI metrics, setting target in terms of sectors, and then define a solid roadmap to reach those targets. If we go to the next slide, we can see, as I was anticipating before, the 4 main priorities in which the alliance is focused now. So net zero and decarbonization, circular design criteria, human rights and inclusion promotion, and water footprint. And the first delivery of the Global Alliance will be done at the end of this year through the publication of 4 position paper coming from all the members of the Global Alliance, in which we can better understand which is the situation, which is the baseline, and which are the targets that we are setting as a sector, and which is the solid roadmap that we are planning to have to reach properly those targets. If we go to the next slide, we can see who is present at the moment in the alliance. We are more than 20. And it's important to underline on the right side corner of the slide that we have the two student associations, so Student Energy, Youth Climate Leaders. We can jump to the next slide. They are fully embedded in all the main structure of the alliance. They have the right to vote, like Iberdrola, like all the other utilities, like Enel as well. They are coming from from college association. We can jump to the next slide. They have slightly different focus in terms of target, those two associations. One is more focused and is Student Energy on creating awareness among the college students in terms of which are the challenges that we are going to face as a society, generally speaking, but also with a specific focus on which kind of opportunities can be offered by the renewable energy sector. Youth Climate Leaders is more focused on creating the skills and creating all the study course to be prepared and to be ready to catch the opportunities coming from the development of the renewable energy all over the world. This gives me the chance to introduce Valeria, my colleagues, because we have seen what Enel is doing together with other peers at associational level in terms of involvement of the youth generations. Now we'll jump with a deep dive on what Enel Green Power with the voluntary program is doing right now. So Valeria, please.
Thank you, and waiting for my presentation to see. Okay, thank you. Okay, we can jump to the next slide. So as Enel Green Power, we are implementing an international volunteering program that is called Connecting Energies. It started at the end of, the end of 2019, and it was supposed to be physical in person, but then because of COVID, we had to rethink the whole thing, and now we're doing all the projects digitally via computer. So next slide. So why an international volunteering program? First of all, why not? It's nice. So I think there are two goals. First of all, is a corporate goal. Of course, we want to consolidate the fact that Enel is very committed on the social side to impact disadvantaged communities. But on the other side, I think there's also the social goal to better the lives of many, and also to give a purpose to the colleagues, because if we're all working together for a good purpose, we're more motivated to stay in a company. So colleagues from two different business lines are now involved in the volunteering program, from infrastructure networks and Enel Green Power and thermal generation. And we managed to implement the projects through the partnership with our sustainability local referent in the countries of presence, and also with some NGOs, external NGOs that helped us creating the project. So if we go to the next slide, it's an overview of some of the projects that we implemented in 2021. The first one is Renewable Against COVID with Rest for Africa. I'm going to do a deep dive in the next slide. Educando con Energía in Colombia, we mentored some students. Digital literacy to teachers, where we mentored teachers. And then SOS Mentoring to give support to young entrepreneurs that were struggling throughout the pandemic. So the results was pretty impressive. We had 91 volunteers, digital volunteers. The beneficiaries were around 2,000 and the hours volunteer were around 3,000. So in the next slide, the deep dive on the Renewable Against COVID project in partnership with Rest for Africa and Elettrici Senza Frontiere. It was a pretty technical project, and we had 4 of our colleagues participating. They had a technical background, they're all engineers. And it was a feasibility analysis of to design some mini grids for some schools and some health centers in Cameroon and in Kenya, because there was a need, and there is a need for reliable source of energies in sub-Saharan Africa. The beneficiaries yearly are of around 1,500, and all volunteers were from Italy and volunteered around 50 hours. So if we go to the next slide. It's another overview of some of the projects that we're implementing this year. Of course, there are many others, but I decided to put on the slide the three main ones that are actually about to end in the first half of the year. So Renewable Against COVID 2.0 is the second edition. I'm going to do a deep dive in the next slide. And then we have the Instituto Pachacutec, where basically there are boys and girls that live in the street, and the Institute take those young people and give them a purpose to pursue an electrical career. Also mentoring program, the second edition, and it had more countries involved. So if we go to the next slide. So Renewable Against COVID 2022 was slightly different from the first edition because we wanted to give the opportunity to all colleagues to participate. So not just technical skills, but also soft skills. And it was also different because it was not the colleagues doing the feasibility analysis of the health centers, but it was people from the Microgrid Academy doing the feasibility analysis with the support of our colleagues in the first two phases of the project. And in the third phase, it was some colleagues given mentoring classes, for instance, entrepreneurship skills, or how to make a resume, how to do a job interview, or anything that people from the Microgrid Academy needed. So if we go to the next slide. So this is the newest partnership with Rest for Africa. We're doing the volunteering program at the Microgrid Academy. And so our colleagues will be teaching classes, technical classes, and also soft skill classes. So we actually decided to include the soft skills part for the same reason of the previous project, because we wanted to include more colleagues and give the possibility and the chance to everyone to be a part of the project. So the first module was on the PV system connections, batteries, and mini grids, and entrepreneurship skills, specifically communication. And each model throughout the year will have different topics and will involve different volunteers. So we had 8 volunteers, 6 from Italy, 1 from Spain, 1 from Brazil, and it was around 12 hours of volunteering activities. So the partnership with Rest for Africa is indeed very important for us because we want to give the chance and the opportunity to all young generations to be included in this just energy transition partnership, partnering for the same goal. And throughout, I firmly believe that with education and investing in education is always a good choice in order to give the same opportunity to everyone all over the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you for reminding us about, I think it cannot be overstated, how incredibly important collaboration is across countries, across age groups. It's incredibly important, and it's great to see that there are also programs such as NL's volunteering program, because I know that especially young people these days, that the values of the companies that they work for are extremely important to them and are a driver of how they choose the jobs that they take. And having the opportunity to contribute to something greater, to making a positive impact is fantastic, and it's something that is greatly appreciated. So thank you both of you. Now, some of the speakers before have mentioned finance, the importance of financing for achieving all of the goals that we would like to achieve regarding the energy transition. So next up, we have Mr. Alessandro Stefanoni, Managing Director of Energy Industry at Intesa San Paulo, who will be telling us more about the role of finance in the energy transition. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much to all of you. For me, it's a very pleasure to be here. I am absolutely a fan of Rest for Africa initiatives, and anytime I will be invited, I'm really happy to join, give my small contribution on it. First of all, consider that just to give you an idea of which is my activity, I work in Italian, a big Italian commercial bank. So it means that it is the biggest in Italy, is Intesa San Paulo. We have a very strong activity also around the world, in particular for some sector like energy, which has not any country. And I'm involved in origination of transaction in the energy space. No? So it means that my activity is an amazing activity, as we have to originate deal everywhere when there is an opportunity in any country, US and Europe, Latin, Africa, whatever. That means that for me it's very important to be here and to give you some key message to these young guys, as I believe that there are something that have to be really clear since the beginning. First of all, guys, anytime you have to start with your initiatives, which should be in the energy or whatever, but let's speak at energy, which is very complex, consider that you have to run very, very, very detailed risk assessment. This is a starting point to analyze each single initiative. We have to understand where are the risks, which are the risks, who has to assess this risk. As is very important, as at the end of the day, to create a risk matrix where you're in condition to allocate each single risk for each single counterparty. This is very important, as my first activity when I was young as you was to see the problem without analyze every risk profile. So now, after more than 20 years in the energy sector, I don't want to start and analyze a new transaction if I don't have a clear picture or how to risk is allocated. Second message, we are very involved as a bank, but not just as an investor, generally in all the green ESG, circular, sustainable investment. All the investor, also our investor, which has the foundation, institutional investor, private savers, are carrying on the renewable and the green footprint investment. So we have the mission to increase our green activity, as there are a huge amount of billion available in the investor on the green transition. I spend probably my last 2 or 3 months to meet clients that coming from abroad, funds, utilities, IPP, this kind of client is coming in Italy because they are interested to invest in Italy, but generally they're interested to invest in energy. So it means that this is a very important, good opportunity, as there is a massive concentration of investment on green and the energy. And one of the requirements of the investor is also to diversify their risk. So they don't want just to deploy all the money in the very mature Europe, when the framework are very clear, when it's not difficult to build, when it is much more in advance than in the other country. But they want to invest everywhere. So we don't want to take just Europe on AAA countries. We want just to invest in the country where we can give you value added, we can give you our experience, our skill, and just how to move in these countries. Consider that Intesa and Paulo, with the other financial partner of the Rest for Africa, are deeply involved in designing a product which give us the possibility to lend money and to deploy money also in emerging countries, take into account the potential commitment on the EIB. So we believe that in short time we will be ready, yes, to launch this product, which probably give much more chance to involve also private capital, and not just a market like the African market that so far is composed by DFI, so Development Financial Institution, and the multilateral. The third key message that I want to give you is that the banks, in general, the financial institution, represent really the last part of the value chain of the transaction. In my experience, in particular, when we see very early stage transaction, which are very complex, everywhere they are located, in Europe, in Africa, or any other countries, it's very important to understand which is the role of each party. There is the role of the developer, which is the people which is present locally, which knows the country, which knows the opportunity, and which know really which are the needed they do. Then there are the investors, the big investors, which are too big to spend time locally, to invest time to sounding the opportunity, to scouting the opportunity. So this is the last part, the big part, the investor. And then there are the public authority, the government. They have to do this part, in particular for the emerging market, the commitment of the government represented topics if you want to invest. Because without the commitment of the public authority, of the Minister of Finance, Minister of Energy, it's very difficult to approach on a private capital in that market. And the banks really comes at the end of the process when the developer has done his job, the risk assessment, the investor has decided to invest, and the banks has to collaborate just to create the condition to invest, as most of the energy asset, renewable asset, but the energy asset are capital intensive. So it's very important to involve financial institution, banks, private investor to deploy much more capital to keep to scale up the system. These are the three key messages that I want to bring with you. At the end, just to conclude, I want to say that probably the energy sector is the best sector when I have to invest. I have two children, they are younger, but I ought to say that the energy sector is the sector where there are a lot of potential of growth. If I remember when I started in 2005 to work on the energy, also before at the beginning of 2000, and now there are a lot of change again that are moving. So every day I'm surprised to see how does this sector is improving and how fast is improving. This is very important. So you have to catch this moment. This is very important for you. And I believe that Rest for Africa, all the initiatives that I do from the microgrid, the ATC, and now it's a pleasure also to see that you have decided to create a funds for venture fund or something similar just to finance the seeds, which is very important. As if you don't find someone, not just to help you with the money it's a good transaction, the money you can find the fund, but can help you to present to an investor the opportunity of financing. As in most of the cases, I've seen that there is a good idea, but there is no any culture in terms of business plan, in terms of risk assessment, in terms of how to involve the party. So I think that all the activity that Rest for Africa is doing for the young, my future entrepreneurs like you, is absolutely a plus that we have to take it and to keep it care, because I absolutely again agree that there is no any other opportunity like in this moment. You guys live in a very complex country, so it's not easy to work there. But there are all the tools here to give you the possibility to grow, to create network. Don't forget, you have to create network. The technology can help you, can help us to increase our network. And you can manage technology much more better than me. So this is very important, guys, that all that happen, and today I listen, make it happen. If you want to make it happen, you can do that by yourself at the beginning, and to use all the tools that Rest for Africa provide to you to improve and to make it happen. So thanks a lot for your attention, and best for all for your career. I'm absolutely available to help you to your initiative or something else. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those remarks, and thank you for those very encouraging remarks at the end. I think it's great that you came and spoke about the financing. I know when I was a student, I was obviously very interested in development, so I did all the normal development courses and legal courses, but now that I'm in the energy access sector, I really regret that I did not do any financing programs, because I now realize how important the financing is to development. And if we're going to reach that 100 billion, we need more people in the finance sector. So I always encourage young people who are just about to start university, who want to do development, to do those finance courses, because it's so important. There's so few people in the banking community who are working on this, but it's such an amazing part to work on, and it's profitable also. There's so many bankable projects, especially in Africa, on energy access. And I think people forget that when we talk about a growing youth population in Africa, we forget to say that the youth population, which is growing in Africa, also is a growing middle class population who can afford electricity. They just need bankable projects to connect them. So there is money to be made in Africa. This isn't going to be aid. It's money that banks can invest and get huge profits back on. So thank you so much for those remarks. And so our next...
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Amal. Thank you again for those remarks. Our next speaker will be Amal Chadi, who's from Schneider Electric. She's joining us online remotely. And Amal is speaking about something which is really important and actually moves a bit quite nicely from the financing part. And Mr. Stefanoni was talking about that a bit. It was also the localization of these programs. And I think building local capacity for young Africans is so important. I think COVID showed us really important in Africa that when COVID hit Africa, and I think a lot of other regions, everybody went back home. And so what happened is all the investment in Africa and all the people who were working in Africa, foreigners left obviously because of COVID. And we were stuck with not a lot of people who had local capacity and training. So the work that Schneider Electric is doing actually to build local capacities in young professionals and actually educate them is so powerful and so important. And it's going to be one of the big topics which are going to be at COP27. It's not just financing local projects, but also ensuring that we support young workforce to be able to take those projects and make them sustainable and self-sufficient. So over to you, Ms. Shadley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be with you today, and I really want to thank Race for Africa for this great opportunity. As you said, so today I will show how the industry is contributing to build the local capabilities. Instead of talking about the strategy, I chosen in fact to give you few very concrete examples in order to give more ideas to our young talent. So if you go to the first slide, please, you will see the example of South Africa. In fact, we are present in more than 100 countries. And in all countries where we are present, we have what we are calling the excellence centers or the training centers, where the aim is to train the local capabilities. So with this training center in South Africa, we are training. We trained between 2020 to 2022, 8,000 people. So we have very structured training program, which help the people to be able to position themselves either internally in Schneider by applying to a few positions, or to build their proper companies, or to have a partnership. The way that we are doing it is we are founding in fact this sales excellence. We are 200 people volunteer from Schneider, teaching in all the topics. It could be technical skills about electrical engineering, but it could be also about finance, to advise the entrepreneurs how to manage their business, or how to mitigate the risk. As my peer rightly said, we have to manage also the risk. This program allows us to first include the young generation, but also to include the female talent, and to be very careful about the gender equality. As you know, in the energy, it's a male-dominated sector, so it's a time to work on the gender equality, and this kind of program is really helping. So in very nutshell, 8,000 people trained in 2 years. So it's a small program, but really impacting a lot of young generation. Next slide, please. So here from the training centers, I would like to present to you a concrete project that was in fact executed in Africa, and again in South Africa with the Gwakawani village. This program, in fact, allowed us to put in place access to solar energy, and to give a right education and to create jobs. So 9 people was by executing this project was creating their proper business. And in fact, this project impacted 100 people by bringing them energy, solar energy. So it's a clean energy, but it's also helped to have access to clean water. And here also it's a very important topic, as you know. Access to clean water is a way to fight against malaria. This program allows us also to reduce the CO2 emission by bringing clean energy. This is one among a lot of other examples. If we go to the next slide, so we will be seeing another project was ESNA in Dandara, and here it's in Egypt. It's a little bit more sophisticated, and it's a project that I really like because it's bringing energy, but it's bringing energy in the service of agriculture. So here we are talking about green energy, about CO2 emission reduction, but also about creating jobs. But not only, but it's also allows the remote villages to be able to have an agriculture and to be self-sufficient. So in this project where we included the greenhouse, the fish ponds, and the poultry incubator, we were able to create 200 jobs. Again, to nourish all the village. We installed 30 kilowatts of solar energy, and we were able to measure the CO2 reduction, which is about 30 tons per year, which is really significant. I'm particularly proud about this project because we are bringing the digital in the grid. We are upskilling the capabilities, by bringing our EcoStructure platform. So it means that, sorry for that. It means that we are bringing the software, the artificial intelligence on the service of the grid and on the service of the agriculture. If we go to the next slide, please. So here also we have another example where we are bringing the solar energy at the service of the agriculture, and we are monitoring the analytics in order to control and to monitor the system. It's a real progress in the life of the agriculture, because if we think about the hardness of the people who are in the agricultural sector, we know that we don't have holidays, they don't have night and days, everything depends on the weather, and it's depending also on the rain. By bringing the digital, we are making their life easier, and we are attracting also the people in the agriculture sector. And we know how the agriculture is really important in our continent. So here it's a wonderful example showing how the technology is serving the transition from the fossil to the green, but also how it's facilitating the life of the agriculture, and how we are increasing the productivity and attracting the people in this sector, where we know since years it was not attractive, and we had some deficit on this sector. If we go to the other slide, please. Yeah, thank you. I want to bring another global practices. What we seen, it was really very local practices where we are bringing the talent attracting them, upskilling them, promoting them sometimes by giving them a key position in Schneider Electric and retaining them. Sometimes we are also creating the opportunity for them to create their own business and to be actor of the future of the continent. I'm also very proud to talk about Schneider Electric University, which is a complete open platform allowing everyone to go and to follow in fact courses and all the training that they want. From 2020 to 2022, we had more than 34,000 subscriptions and 146,000 sessions of training. It's completely free. It's recognized by Schneider, and after completing few trainings, we can even sometimes have some masters and some degrees from Schneider that is recognized worldwide in the group and can allow us to create opportunities around the world. So it's our way to show that the knowledge and the technology needs to be shared. It's completely free, and the only thing that we have to do is to go there and to connect to the website. The last initiative that I would like to present to you is, next slide please, is the Go Green, Schneider Go Green, and I'm particularly proud about this program. In fact, we announced the winners last week, and it was my pride to be part of the global judge and to vote for our talents around the world. So in this program, in fact, it's really open to all students. It doesn't matter at which level of training they are. They have to bring an innovative solution in order to participate to the energy transition in 5 areas, either in access to energy, or in smart home, or in a smart supply chain in the grid, or sorry. And the last one, sorry, I could not see the screen. No, sorry, come back. Yeah, if you could come back. Yeah. So we had here more than 25,000 participants. 2,700 students submitted a bold idea. We were very proud to see that more than 40% of the participants were female, which is a good achievement to encourage again the participation of the women in our sector. And we have the participation of 128 countries. So the winners are coming from Morocco. So we were happy to see that Africa was so well represented. They won 10,000 euro to be distributed among the three members of the team. But they will be also going to visit our R&D center, and we commit to recruit them at the end of their studies. So this is a few examples about how Schneider Electric is participating to build the local capabilities. So I thought that it could be insightful for the young generation to show them that we are walking the talk in order to integrate the young generation. We have so many other programs who are trying to attract the early career, and we'll be very happy to exchange with the universities, with the business schools, with the engineering schools also in internship or in any training programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chadley, for being with us today and telling us all about Schneider's efforts. Schneider truly is a leader in terms of its commitment to local impact and the empowerment of younger generations through training and capacity building and support for young innovators And I really hope that these efforts, as well as efforts such as those from Enel Green Power, serve as an inspiration for other companies in the renewable energy sector and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, moving to the last, but certainly not the least important speaker in our panel. As we've heard a lot about initiatives dedicated to supporting young people and training them, we will now have the opportunity to hear from a young person who was able to benefit from such initiatives. It's my pleasure to invite to the stage Mr. Caio Daoud from the Prismian Group. He actually is an engineer, so maybe he'll tell us more about engineering things as well, but please take the floor.
Ciao, ciao. Okay, I hope I don't look too nervous. This is my first time doing this, so please go easy on me. My name is Caio Daoud. I'm a Brazilian engineer. I started in Prismian through the graduate program. We will see some slides on it. And I'll spend 2 words on Prismian Group, 2 words on my experience, which is yet short, but it has been quite fun. So next slide, please. Okay, we started as a division of Pirelli Group. We were Pirelli Cavi in the past. I don't want to get too in details here, but the message is that Prismian grows organic and inorganically. We grow because we increase our revenues, but we grow also because we acquire, we merge with other players in the market. So the last important big example that I can give to you here is with General Cable in 2018. General Cable was a huge player in the US market. We are a huge player in Europe, also LATAM. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that this strategy of growing has placed us in the 5 continents of the world. We have plants from South Africa to Asia. We can see that we have also plants in Ivory Coast and Angola, for example. Almost 30,000 employees, 26 are in these centers, more than 100 plants. And to give you an idea of size, over 2 billion on sales last year. Those are numbers from last year. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So what do we do, right? We are present in all those spheres you can see on the slides. So we perform energy cables, telecom cables, accessories for energy cables, accessories for telecom cables. We give services of installation for the energy cables, for example, maintenance also. When it comes to energy cables, we go from low voltage to extra high voltage. So it means the little cables that go inside our houses to the big cables that cross the ocean from one country to another, underground cables that cross one whole country, for example. So we are present everywhere, from buildings, transportation, industries, power grids. You can imagine that in each of those squares, we can have dozens to hundreds of different product families. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. This vast portfolio permits us to have also lots of partners, lots of customers, again, all around the globe. You can see that it more or less fits out with our global presence also. So to give you 3 examples of Brazil, which I'm more familiar with because I am Brazilian. We have Petrobras. Petrobras is a player in the oil industry. We have Telefônica, it's a telecom company. And then we have Enel that we have already learned from. And Enel has acquired a very big Brazilian utility. Now Enel is big in Brazil, and it's placed in the energy industry. If we could move on, please, to the next slide. Okay, moving on to R&D, where I work in. I think those numbers show how innovation and creation is important to us. We have more than 100 million euros expenses in R&D. Of course, a big part of it is to keep things going, is to pay the cost to keep things going, but it's also new investments, new projects that we are fostering. We have more than 5,000 patents. As I said before, 26 R&D centers. One of them is in Brazil, where I come from. Collaborations with universities, startups, and almost 1,000 professionals just working in R&D. If we could move on to the next slide, please. Okay, if you could make 2 more clicks so I can see the whole slide. Yes, perfect. So we believe that all those numbers that I showed before, you know, our presence, how big we are, our customers, how we invest in R&D, we believe that this permits us to be a player when driving the world towards energy transition. So very simple example, we are seeing lots of sources of green energy, so solar, wind farms, for example. We need a way to bring this energy from these green sources to the people or the industries who will consume it. So we produce the cables to do so. And we do more than that. We will see later in the presentation. Digitalization. So with the pandemic, as we heard, the virtual world has boosted so much. So for example, what we are doing now, Mr. Roberto said he just had to connect from Rome because he suspected he could have COVID. So this is digitalization. We are moving onwards to the virtual world. Now we are talking a lot about the metaverse. All of this requires more data traffic. This means that data centers or the telecom companies, they need more fiber density. So their cables, they need cables to be smaller so they can fit more cables in a single volume, but also they need more fibers inside those cables that are smaller. And we are being able to do that. And to end this slide here on the electrification, a very simple example. In order to foster electrical vehicles, for example, we will need to have electrical stations to charge those vehicles, and we need to bring energy to those stations. So our cables are also being able to do that. So if we could move on. And just 1 more click, please. Yes, perfect. So we do consider ourselves global because of all the numbers that we have seen before, but also because we have rooted on us this culture of intercultural exchange. Myself is an example. The global graduate program from Prism, which I got in through. I started in Brazil. I started with other 49 colleagues from around the world. We were 4 Brazilians at that year. This happens every year. We came to Milan for an induction, so we met here just like you guys are doing here, for example. We met our colleagues. Then we returned to our home countries to work there, to perform job rotations and understand where we would like to work in. I was already passionate for R&D, so for me it was not a difficult choice. And then we were assigned to the international assignment. We have, as I showed before, more than 100 plants. I was lucky enough to come here to the HQ. And so the idea is to travel abroad, make network, know people, learn, and then go back to our countries and exchange with our colleagues there what we have learned abroad. So I can see myself a little bit here. So moving on to the next slide. Exactly, yes, thank you. This is exactly what I'm doing today. Just a few words. I work in a department called Cable Technology. I'm working in the energy part. We also have a telecom part. And we are working on the evolution of cables. So we go to the factories to assist on prototypes producing for new cable lines, new materials for our cables. We perform the startup of new plants, the startup of new lines. So I travel more or less 40–50% of my time, talking specifically about our department here in Milan. There's a nice cultural balance. I am Brazilian, there's another Brazilian guy, there's Spanish people, American people, Italians, French, all here, all this just in the department here in Milan. If we move on to other departments, and this cultural exchange just goes bigger and bigger. We have had, for example, Australians also in our department. Gender balance, I can see developments here. When I got in 2018 in this department, there was only one woman. Now it is already 27% of the department. So I can see in these last 4 years, we are fostering diversity. And last but not least, there's also a generation balance also. We are basically half of our department is of people over 50, and half of our department is people under 35 years old. So there's also a very interesting generation balance. Last slide. So specifically what I've been doing in this last years, my main responsibility, which is completely related to energy transition. I have been lucky enough to be assigned to a project that is called the German Corridors with a client called Tenety. And we are linking the north of Germany to the south of Germany. So we have the wind farms in the north of Germany, and we are connecting the industries in the west and the south of Germany through our cables. Now, we are fostering a green future here, not just because we are supplying the cables that is bringing the energy from these green sources, but also because, and here comes our innovation, we are the first to supply a cable that is 100% recyclable in this market, HVDC. And it has been amazing to be part of it, to work with this innovation, industrialize it, and seeing now being installed in Germany. And I won't go in details in the last one because I am not part of it. So I don't want to take the risk to say something I'm not so involved in. So if we could move on, I finish here. I hope I could keep up with this high-level panel. Thank you very much for this. It has been amazing. This is an amazing opportunity. I see myself a lot here. So I want to say to you guys, don't lose your energy, your positivity. The business world, companies really need this. They really appreciate this. They really see value in this. Of course, they need people that bring results, but to have positive people who speaks up and are not afraid of asking, it's very important. Don't lose this. I saw this when we did the R&D tour. Don't lose this, okay? This is very much appreciated. Thank you all so much. It is amazing. It was amazing to be here.
Thank you very much, Kai. That was very interesting. I'm happy to hear that there are more women going into cable R&D, and that there's now a recyclable, what did you say it was?
It's called P-Laser. Our innovation, our material, it's called P-Laser.
Exactly. Also, great job. You did not seem nervous at all. So thank you very much. Now, considering that we're running quite late, I will not open the floor to questions. I will instead introduce a consultant who, unlike the participants of Mr. Digastel Nuovo's courses, is not clueless about the sector. In fact, he is very knowledgeable about the energy transition. I would like to call Yasmina Hodzic to the stage. She will be filling in for Yes, I am talking about you. She'll be filling in for Valeria Rava, who couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, and she'll be telling us more about the results of the Youth Engagement Survey at Rest for Africa, done in collaboration with PwC.
Thank you. Thank you, Yarina. Thank you, Mame. This is incredible. Thank you also for Rest for Africa for organizing. My name is Yasmina Hodzic. I'm manager at PwC Group Climate Change, ESG Climate Change in reality. I have a different topic. I am also separating you from the networking cocktail, which is really not a good role to have. So I'm going to be quick. What we did, PwC assisted Rest for Africa in preparing a survey whose purpose was to see what is it that young people have to say about how to take forward the energy transition agenda. So what that was born out of is a recognition that the Youth Task Force is very well placed to provide direct insight, but a broader survey is needed to survey a broader number of voices, right? So I'm actually going to stand up to try and illustrate the slides and also to make myself quicker. So hopefully everyone can see me from here. Okay, and the camera is right there. So on the first slide, it's coming. Right. So on the first slide, you see who answered this survey. We had 127 respondents. The average age of the respondents was in the age group between 22 and 27. So the survey was open to participants between 18 and 35 years old. So you see that everybody's very young. The respondents come from 18 countries all over Africa. So you see the countries. They have a very broad academic background. Most of them are in energy and engineering and STEM. There is a good representation also of social sciences and economics. So these are the people who answered the survey. Now let's see what is it that they say. In the next slide, we have what is it that they say about the education system where they participated. So the question was, how do you rate the adequacy of the education system which you lived through in meeting the requirements of the clean energy transition? So we don't have clear views on where they went to university. But what you see is that over half of them, so nearly 60%, find it either not adequate or severely inadequate for meeting the needs of the energy transition. So already that's the starting point. In the next slide, we asked, what is it that companies should do? So we first ask, what are the most meaningful ways in which businesses can take action for a clean energy transition? And what emerged is investing. So they said, invest in research and development. So the red bars means that those are the high priorities or high impact. So they said, invest in research and development. So well done to Prismian. And also invest in upskilling and transition skills. So well done to everyone who presented, because everybody talked about upskilling. So those are the highest priority areas. And then not such a high preference for companies becoming carbon neutral. Apparently that's not so impactful in the views of our respondents. We also asked them, in which areas do you want renewable industry companies to do more? And then we asked them in these different areas, and everybody said, well, not everybody, but a majority said that companies should be working for energy access for all. There was also an option about improving the quality of the electrical service. There was not such a high preference for that. So, by the way, all of these results, you can access it. We will send out the survey later on, so I'm just giving you a flavor. In the next slide, we asked about climate targets. So the first question was, how do you see the attitude of energy policymakers in your country concerning targets and concerning their ability to meet those targets? And this bar here, I don't know if you can see, this bar here, the largest one, it says most people find it that their countries make high commitments, but they will not be able to reach them. And so this is probably what many of you are also seeing, certainly Rest for Africa. All African countries have committed, have signed the Paris Agreement. Everybody has very ambitious renewables targets and quite interesting narratives about meeting those goals. But as you see, most of our respondents are saying there is not enough implementation of those targets. And then we asked, what should companies do to stimulate government actions? So in the beginning, there was a lot of talk, what Roberto was talking about, Rest for Africa works on improving investment conditions. So we asked, what should companies do? They said, our respondents said you should do more training courses, more public-private partnerships. So again, I think many companies are doing the right thing. I think I only have one more slide, or perhaps two more. Let's see on the next one. Okay, I have two more, but very quickly. So here we asked young people about their views or the challenges that they are facing today. And two challenges emerge as highest. So again, the red bar is what they see as a high challenge. They said lack of job opportunities, and they also said unpaid or poorly paid traineeships. So what young people, what our 127 respondents need is jobs. At the same time, so that is the view of the present. But then we asked them, what do you think about the future? So we said, what do you expect that renewables will bring in the future? And the largest part of them said, well, renewables will bring more jobs. So it's a nice view, right? So today we are worried about jobs, but we believe that renewable energy industry will bring more jobs. So it's a, it's a nice difference between the present and what they expect. Last slide, and then I will let you go. What young people value the most when they're choosing where to work? Again, the pink one is what they value the most. This first bar here, the very tallest one, they most value the sustainability of the sector in which the company operates. They also value the climate commitment of the company, and they also value when companies create shared value with local communities. So what emerges from this slide, from this question, is that young people today are broadly not willing to work for companies that are not sustainable. So that is more a message to companies that are sitting here. I think the voice is quite clear. 127 people have told us their views. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that again, having a problem with removing my mask. But thank you so much for that. That was really fascinating. I think I could see from the audiences while they were watching, everybody was really interested in the results of the survey. I think they were really fascinating to look at. And I think it's really interesting to see that the results of the survey tie in with what we heard earlier from the professor saying that, young people are interested in working for sustainable companies. And it's not just that we're interested in working for sustainable companies, but also that we're interested in working for companies who are making ambitious commitments and implementing them. That's the important part. They're actually committing to their goals. I think a lot of people forget that. And I think young people especially are very quick to call out companies who make these ambitious targets in governments and actually don't reach them. And, our whole culture of, you have to be woke and you have to out people and cancel companies who aren't making commitments. So do beware, if you're going to make these big green and energy access goals, do make sure that you commit to them and implement them. Our next speaker and our last speaker for today, I'm really excited to introduce him, is Mohammed Al-Haj. And he is our not only is he the founder and director of Clean Energy for Africa in Sudan, he is also the chairman of the Race for Africa task force, and he'll be speaking on behalf of the task force today, and he's going to have some great words of encouragement for everybody and discuss more about the ambitions of the task force. So over to you, Mohammed, to close this out for today.
Thank you so much. I think this is the worst spot to be a speaker at the end of the program, but I promise it'll be very brief. Sure, we're all looking forward to the cocktail. So first thing, I would like to thank Rest for Africa Foundation for so many things, really. First thing, for giving us this opportunity to be part of this task force, for your hospitality. Also, I'd like to thank PwC for their kind invitation. So first thing, I want to talk about the task force. Why emerged, and it really emerged from the pre-COP26 event that was held here in Milan, where there was a document about the youth agenda and what youth would like to see in terms of climate change and renewable energy. And so starting from there, Rest of Africa Foundation found that it's really important to have a strong connection with a trusted group of young leaders to strengthen the activities of the foundation in terms of youth engagement, youth initiatives. And so this is where the task force came from. It's a really amazing group, and I would really like everyone to get to know the members of the task force. So they are in this first 2 rows. Very amazing group, very talented. It's not like people who are just starting their careers and looking for mentorship. No, a lot of them are very accomplished and very interesting group of individuals that I'm very happy and proud to be part of. So our aspiration really as a task force is to try to support the foundation, try to develop concrete recommendations for initiatives, especially in the area of capacity building and training. So much discussed about it today, and so many great initiatives that were presented by different companies. And one of the stakeholders that I would like to, I'm going to be a bit biased here, is Pocono University, because for me, coming from an academic background, I think what Sir Matteo mentioned about the multidisciplinary aspects of the energy transition, that is sometimes very difficult to embed them in conventional educational systems. So it's important, I think, that we try to develop programs that we always need specialists, no doubt, but to have someone who can see the magnitude of what it takes, for example, to develop a renewable energy project or an initiatives, and the different skill sets that are needed, whether it's finance or legal or negotiations or communications. I think these are very important things. One thing as well I want to talk about is the Youth Fund, and very amazing initiative. Really excited, honestly, to see it launched. And one thing here, which I think would be very important for this fund to address, and maybe for some other future initiatives by the stakeholders of the foundation, is not just projects that develop a product, like a physical product, but sometimes we need funding for studies that address certain gaps in the market. See, in Africa, a lot of countries in Africa, we have basic issues in terms of access to information, including information about SDG 7 that we want to achieve. One recent report that I read by the SDG Center for Africa, where they were tracking how are African countries progressing, and they found out there's, with the exception of 2 or 3 SDGs, for the others, there's very little data available in order to measure, are we actually making an impact, or are we just launching more initiatives without any fruit coming out? So I think having also some funding for studies that do maybe market intelligence or capacity building for statistics and so on, these are really important, especially for African countries. I don't want to take too long, so thank you so much, everyone, and I look forward to speaking to as many of you as possible in the cocktail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was a great way to close today's event. And I'd like to thank, again, all of the speakers, all of our Rest for Africa members and partners. I'd like to thank the organizing team, Maria Caterina, Ola, the communication team. Thank you all for your efforts making it possible for us to be today. Thank you to our hosts. And without further ado, I invite you all present here today to join us for networking cocktails just up those stairs out the door. Thank you very much. Thank you to those who joined online as well.